So, as many of you, I have been programming for a while and have read quite a bit of source code, either doing open source or doing my consultancy work. And over the time, you develop some intuitions about, or preferences about what you consider to be quality in code. Sometimes that refers to high-level stuff, like how do you define APIs, or how do you organize code, for instance, that kind of thing. But sometimes you see also quality in little details in the code, details that maybe fit in one line, maybe 2 lines, okay? And this talk is about those details. It's going to be a talk about these little things, but also an invitation to introspection, okay? So we are going also to reflect about our thought processes before these little details. And there's going to be opinions, so there's going to be opinions here. And I want to do a little introduction here about opinions. This is something that happens a lot in discussions. In online discussions is a particular case of discussions in life, okay? And it's something that people often, get the other way around. So explaining why we prefer something is different. It's not the same thing as proving that something is the best choice for something. Okay, so sometimes when we frame discussions, we say, we should do this because A, B, and C. And the problem with framing the argument this way is that A, B, and C, oftentimes, unless you are doing mathematics, is something that comes from your background, your personal preferences, your trade-offs, and there's a lot of personal subjective things. And the problem is that other people have different baselines. They do not intersect. Just because they come from different backgrounds, they have different preferences, whatever, So normally, when you say we should do this because A, B, and C, oftentimes that's really, I would prefer to do this thing because in my preferences, A, B, and C have higher priority. So it becomes like more isolated. I would do this. I would prefer to do this. Different from we should do this, as if A, B, and C prove it that was the best thing. Let's do a little exercise to exemplify this. See this hash here, and now this hash here. Do you see the difference, someone? The comma. Do you feel a little bit of tension here? Like, some people feel tension with the comma, some people feel tension without the comma. What? What's what? That's the quote. The quote? Okay, well, that's another one. But the difference here is the comma, all right? And is there any option that is better than the other one? Okay, let's see. Some people in this option value a number of things. They value, for instance, that if you modify the hash, the patch is cleaner. Because, for instance, if you remove this, you get the line in red that removes this. If you add something, you're going to get one green line, okay? It is also kind of uniform, okay? So all pairs have a comma. So aesthetically, may be pleasant, okay? A number of arguments. But the people that prefer that one say, okay, you know what? If I see this one, my brain tells me that there's a missing element here. I am trained to recognize here a missing thing. And I understand the uniformity. I understand that the patch may be cleaner, but I prefer not to have this discomfort in my brain. Just I prefer that one. And if the patch has an additional comma, well, that's fine. The patch has an additional comma. It has to be there. No problem for me, okay? So different baselines. There's one better than the other one? Absolutely not in a general sense. you have your own personal preferences, and if you reflect, you would say, okay, I prefer this one because A, B, and C. All right? If you are working on your own code, you are going to go with the option that you prefer, of course. And if you are in a team, well, you have to reach a consensus and go with one option. So, you know, if it is healthy that we acknowledge that in these kind of things, there's some subjectivity, okay? So if you insert some formulas like this, in my opinion, it is more healthy than being assertive about that thing that maybe has some personal, angle on it. For me, in my experience, in my view, that relaxes the argument a little bit. And in particular, this talk is going to be, entirely in my view, all right? I am also going to enable speculation mode. Speculation mode because sometimes I'm going to speculate. I believe that people that write the code this way, maybe they are thinking this way, okay? That the speculation is fine, but that allows me to do it, okay? All right. Let's talk about conciseness. Using few words, not including extra or unnecessary information. Okay. All the examples I am going to show are real code, either from open source or from client code. I don't quote the source; it doesn't matter. The point is the code. All right, but they are not made up; they are real. Okay. For instance, this one, latest remote, it sorts a certain collection and takes the last element. Okay. We have a specific word for that, which is the maximum of the collection. Okay. Compare the two. In the first one, you have to think more. I am sorting, I am taking the last. Okay, then you infer, therefore, I am taking the maximum. Whereas in this one, in the second one, you have to think less because, bam, it's right there is the maximum. I have all the information, okay? That's more concise. Conciseness oftentimes convey a number of things. Oftentimes goes with choosing the more specific API that you have. Oftentimes involve less code. Oftentimes that code is more clear. You apply Occam's razor to the API, especially when you are reading the code. When you are reading the code, you are giving the exact information about what that is doing. Okay, the implementer of that method also can apply that, and normally that results in better performance because if you have to implement max, look at this. The first line is sorting and then take it the last. If you have to implement max, you do not need to sort necessarily. Okay, maybe there is an implementation of max that does not sort, and there is. Okay, and that one is going to be more performant. In the end, if you have a more narrow, problem to solve, maybe you can leverage that and write more performant code. That's often the case. Another one. Options is a hash. You take the collection of keys and see if that collection includes, in this case, that symbol. All right? We have an API for that. Okay? Here, we are opening a file for writing, and then we dump some contents on that file, and that's it. You have all the content in the content variable, and we write everything to that file, done. The block ends, okay? Okay, since 1.9, we have a specific API for doing that, okay? We had before file read. File read read the whole file into, it returned the whole file. File write is the complementary, allows you to write everything to them, everything in one file. Okay, if you see, you have to think less in the last one because that's exactly what you mean. Okay, so you are able to express yourself more concisely, and the reader of the code is going to in an instant, understand what's going on. Because in the first one, you have to think a little bit. Okay? We are opening a file, something, we write, and the block ends. That's dumping the content. Okay? That's instant in the second version. This one, when I do code reviews for Rails applications, I'm surprised, but this one appears very often. So here, let's say this is active record, okay? There's a where call for, probably the people writing this kind of calls are thinking in SQL, okay? Because in active record, you have an API for this, which is higher level, okay? Usually the pod's done, and it is working at the business model. It's nice, okay? The other one is more SQL-ish. When you are using an ORM is not a black box. An ORM, for me, is like an accelerator. I mean, as a developer, you have to know SQL, and you have to know what the ORM is going to do. For me, when doing queries, ORM is just an SQL generator, okay? So you totally have to know what this is doing. But if you know SQL, you know the query that you want, and and so on, then what you want is speed and expressiveness, okay? So use it the post, done. That's the way I like the code to read, okay? Also very common. Name is a string, okay? So you are interpolating a string in a string to get a string. Unnecessary, okay? What's name? That's it. That's the end of it. Another one. The first one is this is a dynamic invocation, all right? And you have the method name as a string, and it is interpolating the method name in a symbol literal, okay? All right, then the other option is to convert the string to a symbol and pass it to send. But there's no need for that because send accepts both symbols and a string. So just pass it and done. Another one. We are checking if Ruby platform contains Java, okay? From 2.4, we can reverse that and do less things. Because the first one looks very simple, but it's doing a bunch of things, right? First of all, is a regular expression. Java is a regular expression. And then Ruby has to create all these side effects with variables in case you want to use them, like, $&, $1, all these kind of things. So you don't see it, but Ruby is doing it, okay? The second one does less things. The second one means I want just a Boolean. Does it match or does not match? Okay. Yeah, and it has no side effects in terms of instantiating variables. I'm talking about side effects, but the problem is not having a side effect. The problem is doing work that you do not need to do. That's it, okay? So it does not instantiate those variables and is much faster. The second one is much faster than the first one, and you can already use it in active support, even if you are not in 2.4. So there's a compatibility method that allows you to use the API. You do not get the speed benefit, but you can, convert the code if needed to be prepared to go with 2.4. But we have a specific API for checking if a string, is a substring of another string, which is include. Okay? That's the more concise one. I want to check if this string is a substring. We have a method for that. Okay? Like in a natural language, when we have a word for that, the ZAG word. Okay? That's the ZAG one. Nevertheless, it could be argued that the first one reads better. Maybe. So it does more work, whatever, that's true. But there's a trade-off here. Maybe the first one is more clear, easier to read, because this one is a little bit more noisy, right? Also, that thing is doing a number of things. But when you read that line of code, you're not thinking about that, okay? If that code is critical in terms of performance, maybe we should consider those, extra work. But if not, maybe the trade-off of better readability could win. And you're not thinking about, okay, that's a regular expression, there's a regular expression engine that is doing a bunch of things. You don't think that way. You see that line of code, and you basically parse as substring, right? And some languages do not even have that. Some languages have to express it that way. If you are new to a language like this, maybe the first times you are exposed to this test, maybe you read it literally. Maybe you read string index of, okay, that returns the index, first occurrence, whatever. But if you are used to use a language like this, I believe that your brain is not doing this step by step. You recognize the pattern, okay? And you see this, and it's like a unit for you, okay? So in theory, it could be more work, but I believe that in reality, is not the case. In reality, if you are, idiomatic with this language, you are fluent with this language. When you see this, you parse it as a unit. Okay, this is testing substring because you haven't coded that in your brain. Okay. Here we have a redundant self. We don't write redundant selves in Ruby normally as a style. Okay, so get rid of that self. This is particularly, the previous one, you find it less. With classes, I don't know why it is more common. And new is just a method. No need for that self. I don't know if maybe people can come from other languages where new is a keyword, so you are afraid, even if technically it's not needed, maybe, I don't know, maybe you have, some mismatch with the new, with a bare new, I don't know. But this is just a regular method call, so the same principle of not writing redundant selves applies. And this one is by far the most common I see. Let's imagine this is an active record class. You have here, do we have a pointer? Yes. Name is a method, okay, of that class. ID is a method, man. So we put self here, not self here, but it's strange, okay? So the thing is that ID, for some reason, the ID method, for some reason, people tend to put a self in front of this ID. I don't know. I don't know the reason, but that's it. That's very common. No need. It's just a regular method. Don't put self if you are, not writing redundant selves. Okay, but is redundancy perceived that way universally? Well, no. No. These kind of things, for me, are very social in the end. So if you learn Ruby, you learn not only the grammar, you learn also the social conventions and what's considered to be idiomatic in Ruby, which is something that is defined by consensus of the whole thing, and it's something dynamic. That's social. So in Ruby, normally you are not going to write redundant selves. But if you switch to a Python project in the afternoon you have to write self. That's the idiomatic way, okay? And in Ruby, you have some, reasoning to not write self, then there's another different reasoning that says you have to write selves, okay, if you do Python. So in the end, there's quite a bit of social, community thing going on in this kind of, I don't know, conventions or ways to write, the style of writing things. Okay. Let's go with readable code. Enjoyable and easy to read. I took this from online. Okay, let's go with this one. Return something unless name is not blank. Real code. Okay. The reflection here is, in general, human beings are bad at negations. We got this brain. This brain is not well suited for negations. Have to, more costly, all right? Okay, so sometimes you do not have an option. That's it. You have to write that. But sometimes you have another option that removes the negation, okay? So these are equivalent, but for a human being, it's easy to understand the second one, normally, okay, generally speaking. Because this one is positive, all right? So the meaning of the predicate doesn't matter, but the statement is positive. And for us, normally, it's just easier to understand. Then, unless, for some people, me include, also has, I don't know, it's a little bit backwards, I don't know. There's something in unless that makes me think more, okay? And I know that for some people, I don't know if because they are native English people, I don't know why, but for some people, it's just the same cost. Unless than if, same cost, same brain cost, okay? But for some people, me include, unless, I prefer if, okay? All right. Escape it, delimiters. No, don't do that. Okay. The point of this slide is those backslashes, all right? In some languages, you do not have an option. In some languages, regular expressions are even written using string literals, okay? But in Ruby and a bunch of others, you have the ability to not escape the delimiters, okay? And this one reads like there's nothing for you to escape in your brain. It is literal, okay? You just change the delimiters. You choose a delimiter that does not appear in the regular expression, done, okay? And if you are feeling a little bit funky, you can go with something a little more strange, maybe more lightweight, okay? But the point is that if I have something here that is like the delimiter, we change the delimiter. And we avoid as much as possible backslashing because this one reads, I believe, much better than the first one. All right. This one has driven me crazy for a number of years. The thing is that this idiom of expand path, ... /boot, and this pseudo constant file. Okay. The thing here is that we are used to go to a parent of a directory. But going to a parent, so this is requiring boot in the same directory of the current file, right? Because we are doing the parent of a file. The parent of a file in a path name is the directory of the file, and then you go down to boot. This is not the way you normally work with paths. You normally go to the parent of a directory, all right? So, yes, I don't know. This is not super clear to me, okay? Fortunately, in 2.0, we got this one, dir. This is the current the directory of the current file. And I believe this one reads much nicer than the first one, okay? Both in this directory, done, all right? In the case of require, we still have, you know, one little step forward, which could be require relative, okay? This is even shorter and even more clear. But in the case where you are not using that path name for a require, using __ dir, I believe is much more natural than doing all this jumping with the file thing, okay? And coincidentally, just a few days ago, we had a very nice pull request here. Do we have? I don't have it. Okay, yes. You see, 117 files touch uniforming this in the Rails code base by this guy. Are you here? Where? Okay. Can we have an applause for him? I love pull requests like this. And now the Rails code base is a little bit better. Less dots, you know, doing unnecessary things. Another one. Order things naturally. Something that I also find out there, you know, and why? For instance, you define first, last name, and then first name. Why? Normally, you read, if you are reading source code, you know, you go from top to bottom. So you get to the last name, and your brain for a moment goes like, last name, where is the first name? Then below you see first name, okay, then all makes sense, okay, all squared, all right. But for a moment, you have some disconcerting, believe is the word. Okay, just, you know, naturally, first name, last name, that's it, you know, it flows. Another one, delete, create, update. You see your brain double checking, is everything there, you know? All the timestamps there. Why? Because this is not the natural, you know, the natural flow for these timestamps. The natural flow is you first create something, then maybe you update, maybe you delete, you know, that flows. See this one. This is disordered. So you start crossing, you know? Is everything assigned correctly? Maybe port was something added later, and whoever wrote it just, you know, went to the first line, added the assignment, and done. Okay, maybe that's the reason. But no, you know, protocol host port, protocol host port, protocol host port. Okay, fine. No, everything easy. But these things, oftentimes, you know, they are not like very independent. Sometimes you have to trade off, to trade one for another, you know, and put, you know, your weights on your preferences. Let's see this one. We are instantiating here. We have some args, and we are instantiating here a user, you know, object. Okay. Well, we see things that we do not like generally about a code like this. In particular, we have to double check if we didn't copy and paste, you know, the args thing and we missed some of the keys, okay? So we say name, okay. Email, okay, looks right. But we have to think. This one makes you think less in that sense. So this one, all right, in this one, if args does not have the name key, for instance, this method is not going to get a name key. So they are not exactly equivalent. Okay, in the first call, you always get a name key. In the second version, you get a name key if it goes in args. But let's suppose, for the sake of the example, that that doesn't matter. Okay. All right. Well, this makes you cross-check less things, because you get the slice name email done. You know what the slice is doing, so that's done. Okay. But it's a little bit more obscure, right? The first one has that problem, but it's more straightforward, I would say. The second one is more concise, certainly, but maybe it's a little bit more obscure. Well, in a case like this, you have to choose one according to your own preferences, and that's it. I believe there's no, absolute best answer for something like this. You have to trade one for the other often. This one is calling super, whatever. We are in a method. It gets some options that you modify, and then you return those options. That's the idea of this snippet. Well, we have also one idiom in Ruby for doing exactly this, which is tap. Okay? Tap, tap has the whole idea of, I'm going to take this and I'm going to return this. So when you read the first line, already you have that information. Okay, I don't know what I'm going to do in the block. Maybe I'm going to modify it. Maybe I won't modify it. Doesn't matter. But you are communicating to the reader of the code that you're going to take this and you're going to return this. That's the point of tap. Okay. So the reader, in the first case, you have to infer that from the code. You have to infer that you are getting something, doing something, then return that first something. The second one is direct. You have it. Okay. But still, for some people, this is like, it goes beyond the threshold of magic, right? I don't like very much the word magic, but let's use it in this case. Well, it goes beyond the threshold. You understand the theoretical benefit, but even though you prefer the first one because it's more straightforward, okay? All right, being precise. This is an experiment I did with the auto-explain in Rails. We have a threshold. Oftentimes, you do not know the units. So I made the experiment of putting the units in the variable name. First, when you go to the config file, you do not need a comment to say which are the units of that threshold. It's obvious. But even more, when you are inside the source code of active record, and you have the threshold variable used and compared with some time that you have collected somewhere, you have the units there. You know right there whether the comparison makes sense or does not make sense. Okay. This is self-documented. Has many. When you write a has many, you have to take a decision about what to do with the association. Okay, you have to write almost always a dependent option. Otherwise, you are leaving orphan records unless you use foreign keys that you have this automated in the database. Okay, which is what I normally do, let's say. But unless you are doing it automated with foreign keys, you have to take a decision, okay? So this is one of the first greps I do in a project if I do a code review. Has many without dependent. Normally there are orphan records being left in the database. Standard output, there's a constant. No, in Ruby you have this global variable. That's the idiomatic way to write to a standard output, because the point is that someone can change the standard output, for instance, in tests, If you want to collect what something is printing, you just switch standard output momentarily, collect and test. Okay, let's talk now about regular expressions. This saying that says, some people, when confronted with a problem, think, I know, I'll use regular expressions. No, they have two problems. This is a very known quote, and I say that's bullshit, man. Regular expressions are amazing. You have to master them, and they are a super powerful tool. Yeah, in my opinion, bullshit. Okay, username. Let's have this simple regular expression that wants to check if a username is valid. Yeah, simple one. Okay, in Ruby, the caret is different from that anchor. Okay, the caret anchors to the beginning of any line. Okay, and the difference is if you have a multi-line string, in any of the beginnings of the line, the caret is going to match. Whereas /a matches only at the beginning of the string, regardless of whether the string has multiple lines. It's beginning of a string. So if you use the caret to check this is weak. This is asserting things that happen at the start of the line. So for instance, you can get a payload, inserted, and this is going to pass the regular expression test, okay? Because this line matches the regular expression, and doesn't matter, okay? So use A when you mean A. Sometimes you can even relax a little bit. For instance, we are using here, we are iterating over some, directory. We did a search in a directory, whatever, a glob, and we are checking if the file name starts with something. Okay. Well, if this is just a quick and dirty script that you have written for yourself, well, maybe that's enough. If this code, belongs to a library that other people are using, you do not control the file system. Well, can a file name be multi-line? If you are writing this thing, what? Yeah. Okay. So yes. So the thing is, if you are wondering, can a file name have multi-lines? Why wonder this? Just use A, man, and certainly it can have multi-lines, okay? So just use A. If you mean A, that's being precise. If you mean A, use A. Similarly, this anchor, the dollar matches at the end of lines, maybe before a new line if there's one. The slash capital Z matches at the end of the string, maybe with an optional new line, and lowercase z matches at the end of the string, period. Okay, end of the string, whatever. Okay, so we have the caret that matches capital A, and we have the dollar that matches capital Z, okay? But if you want to square something between start and end of a string, you use capital A and lowercase z. Why do we misuse these anchors in Ruby quite often? We've seen this in the Rails code base even, okay? Yeah, okay. Because of this, because Ruby is exceptional. Perl, Python, in most of the languages, the anchor, the caret and the dollar mean capital A and capital Z, okay? Well, the capital Z is still weak. You are allowing a trailing new line, but oftentimes that's not a problem. So we are exposed to a lot of regular expressions out there in Slack in Stack Overflow, or on books, whatever. They use the caret and the dollar with a different meaning, but you don't see it because if you see just the regular expression, you are exposed to a lot of regular expressions like this. So we have, we have to be very precise and know that in Ruby they mean a different thing. Okay, but still, maybe we could say that the first one reads better than the other one. So another trade-off, okay? I could say that the first one, the other one is a little bit more verbose, I don't know. It has more, more stuff, okay? The first one maybe is just simple, I don't know. So there's a trade-off here. All right, and some final words about code style. In the talk, I have not covered anything about code style. We did the first exercise about putting the comma or not in the hash, but that was just an exercise to talk about, arguing about preferences. But this talk has not touched at all code style. And the reason for that is that I believe that code style, for the most part, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So you have of course preferences. For instance, personally, if I read Ruby in the style of the Seattle group with method definitions without parentheses, it's hard for me to parse that. Okay? And there are a number of things here in a style that if you are not used to them, it is just harder, okay? And that, that explodes to the entire, different options that you have in Ruby for writing things. But I believe that's not like fundamental. Like if I was writing or working with code written in that style for 1 month, I could be fine with it, I'm sure. Why? Because your brain basically is a pattern matching machine, okay? And when you see a pattern that you do not recognize, you feel discomfort, okay? But it's just a matter of developing those patterns. When you have developed that pattern, you're going to read that method definition just fine. So it's not fundamental. It's just something that you are not used to that, and we feel discomfort when the pattern does not match. So I believe this is not fundamental. What is important is that we have one unified style, so that that when you switch from file to file, you are in the same parse mode, let's say, okay? And I believe that the Go people got this right. So in Go, you have to follow certain rules, or it does not compile. Period. Done. Okay. And why? Because the details assume as long as you have some sensible defaults or some sensible rules, the details really don't matter. And you are going to go from Go project to Go project, and you are set, man. It's like in Ruby on Rails, you go from project to project, and you have a lot of things that are the same thing, which is, I believe, a very important thing about Ruby on Rails, that you switch projects and you are set. You know how things work, more or less, okay? There might be some difference in it. Each project has differences, but it's not the same as a project where you have all the flexibility, one framework where you have all the flexibility for doing anything you want, and then you have 1 week of landing to just understand how things organized and how things work. That for me is like the translation of this thing to syntax. Okay, no need to so many options. Just stick to one style. Done. And in my view, RubyCop has done like a very good service to the community, because at least we have a tool. We have a tool to at least in one project agree to some rules and a way to enforce them, and a way to express them, and a way to apply them if we want to automate something, applying the style to an existing code base and that kind of thing. So hat tip to the RubyCop team for doing this. And that's it. Thank you.